Jujutsu Kaisen is massive. The series has definitely come up since the first season release, and now it's like you can't even get away from it. I could probably say that this is one of the most, if not the most popular shonen series right now besides One Piece. Jujutsu Kaisen is loved by many, but is it really deserved? Now before you type out your angry comment, just hear me out. From watching the series once so far, I've had this one thought linger in my head since the end of season 2. Did Jujutsu Kaisen peak too early? So that's why we're here today, to actually see if Jujutsu Kaisen is now completely overrated. But before we keep going, how about you concentrate really hard and use a black flash on the subscribe button. And if you really want more of my domain, check out the second channel where we do a bunch of fun stuff over there too. Okay, I won't hold you up anymore. So Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 has two arcs, the Hidden Inventory and Premature Death arc, and the Shibuya incident. Both of these are very important events in the series, but I already covered the Hidden Inventory in another video, so check that out for a deeper analysis of it. But right now, I'll give you the recap so we can keep things pushing. Young Gojo and Geto are tasked to protect the Star Plasma Vessel. This is important because the source of their Jujutsu, Tengen, needs to assimilate periodically in order to stay alive. But what makes this assignment so hard is that there are people who want to see the Jujutsu world crumble. So they send assassins to kill Riko Amanai, the Star Plasma Vessel. Once Gojo and Geto get back to Jujutsu High, they're met by probably one of the coolest characters in the entire series, Toji Fushiguro. He's able to kill Riko and leave the two strongest injured. Gojo runs that fade back and kills Toji with his first Hollow Purple. Geto is very taken back by how strong he really is, and decides to form his own world where the weak rule over the strong. And this also sets up the next chapter, which is Jujutsu Kaisen 0, something I also covered in a different video. So I'm going to try to break this video up as much as possible to analyze everything. So we're going to start from thinking about the season as a whole. It's kind of crazy to see how this arc started in general. The first real episode starts with Mekamaru trying to stop Geto and Mahito from getting the Shibuya. Even if he was only able to kill one of them, he'd be able to get Gojo involved and stop the other one. Unfortunately, none of those things happened, and he is just fucked up very promptly. So now, the first plan is in motion. Set the veil to draw out the strongest sorcerer and capture him. Once Gojo is out the way, the world can be molded as they see fit. Jujutsu High's students and staff all surround the veil in order to stop the curses from wreaking any more havoc they caused. We see our 3 first years in separate squads, but squads are pretty small with there being 2 to 4 members per group. I honestly love this scene of everyone getting all the important info before heading in. It's like no one truly knows what's about to go down, and you as the viewer, you're pretty hopeful that everything is just gonna smooth over without any casualties. No mental anguish at all. Like, I'm gonna be as concise as possible when talking about most things. Like, I'm not gonna analyze the Yuji and the Locust fight or anything because I didn't care much about it. Realistically, what do you want me to say about that? Like, what is there to say about that? Gojo is the first person down in the subway where the curses are killing innocent civilians. They trapped him down there as a way to prevent Gojo from using his domain freely, and from using his techniques willy-nilly. In theory, this would overwhelm him so much that they're able to capture him quickly, because the only person to rock Gojo's shit was Toji, and he wasted no time. The curses are having trouble fighting him even though it's a 3v1, but fortunately for them, they were able to force out Gojo's domain expansion. This scene was crazy, so let me break it down for you as best as I can. So Gojo didn't want to use his domain because if he just straight up used it, he would unintentionally kill everything around him. He ends up forcing out his domain, kills the transfigured humans while avoiding civilians, and does this all in under 5 minutes. This pushes Gojo past his limit and opens him up for Geto to capture him. But I want to talk about how cool this moment was and where my head was before this episode. Before in the Hidden Inventory arc, younger Gojo was pompous, cocky, and of course, strong. I've always had the feeling that if Gojo snapped, he'd kill everyone in sight. They even say later on in the series that Gojo could literally take over the world. So I think the plan to push Gojo past his limit was super cool. Gojo is willing to allow people to get killed by curses, but he won't actually kill the people himself. Because if there's a way to save as many people as possible, he'll take that option. So that's why his domain is so precise. That's why he kills all the transfigured humans, and that's why the plan to capture him works. They tested his morals, and they won. This goes exactly as planned, and now the first part of the plan is in motion. Now it's time to stop everyone from getting the Gojo, and this is where everyone else comes in. Now we can get into... Now that the strongest sorcerer is captured, everyone is trying to keep the casualties to a minimum, and heading to Gojo to release him from the prison realm. But if the strongest isn't there, what the fuck is gonna happen to everybody else? Starting with Yuji and Fushiguro. Their first task is to destroy the barriers that are keeping sorcerers out the lower levels of Shibuya. Not a hard task, but shit gets serious when the #1 menace in history comes back. Not only did he resurrect himself, but then he proceeded to beat the shit out of an old lady. Now the next group is Maki and Nobara, where they meet one of the cursed spirits that was assigned to kill the guys in suits. They honestly get outclassed by him, but Nanami comes to relieve the duty of Nobara, while simultaneously having one of the worst deliveries in anime history.
The number of your allies and their locations.
That shit is fucking trash, dog. Get the fuck off the airway.
Nanami urges Nobara to stay out the way because she'd be more of a hindrance since she's not a grade 1 sorcerer. After Yuji splits off with Fushiguro, he heads down to the train station where he's met by Choso, one of the cursed spirits set on killing him. I remember watching this and being like, those weird guys were your brothers? Like, you're dead ass right now? But this was a really cool episode. I'm gonna start off with the actual visuals first. This is probably one of the best fights so far, and if I didn't watch this season beforehand, I'd probably say this was one of the coolest in the entire series. This fight lasted pretty much the whole episode, which I think was pretty well paced. From the lighting, to the choreography, to the music, everything was great. But now I want to talk about the actual situation that Yuji was in. He's up against an opponent who he knows nothing about, and he hates the fuck out of him. His main goal before the fight was save Gojo, but then he gives up on it knowing that he's more likely to die. So then it switches to kill this guy so it's less trouble on everyone else. Like, this is where it clicked for me. The series is not about heroes or villains. This is a matter of survival. And if you think I'm crazy, here's my analysis on the last couple of scenes. Like I said, Yuji understands that he's just a cog in the grand scheme of things, so whether he lives or dies doesn't matter as long as he reaches his new goal. Then they subtly played a version of the theme that played in season 1 where Yuji and Nobara hit a black flash at the same time. This song, if you didn't know, was called Remember. And you probably remember the crazy ass guitar when he was going back and forth between Nobara and Yuji. It was super hard, but if we look a little closer, the lyrics are very important. It's not right or wrong. Here in this war, nobody wins in the end. We fight to breathe for another day. Here in this war, we're gonna find in the end the will to survive, fear to die. It's not right or wrong, it's not right or wrong, here in this world. Before hearing that, I thought the lyrics were just cool for the sake of being cool. But this, I felt like it was set up perfectly. The song is so recognizable, and when they play it without the lyrics, it forces you to go back and listen to the song with them. It kind of marks a change in Yuji's mindset, especially at this point in the series. It's no right or wrong. Here in this war, we're gonna find in the end the will to survive. This was never about good and evil. These are people, in curses, trying to protect what they have and will do it by any means necessary. And of course, we inherently see the sorcerers as good guys, but if we look at it from a top-down view, these guys have been killing a whole race of creatures. And with the curses, they're born from bad energy from humans. They can't help it, it's in their nature. So naturally, they'd be angry if someone was going around killing them. Jogo even says, I want to live and see the day that curses can be seen as people. There is no good side in Jujutsu Kaisen. There is no bad side. And I think that's why people like this so much. No one is in the right. You just want to see the best outcome. But some just end up losing in the end. Switching gears to Nanami and Maki, they encountered another cursed spirit, Dagon. Apparently on my TikTok I pronounced their name wrong, and I thought it was a very good theory, but fuck you guys.
Fuck the fans. No sarcasm, no...
Not really, I love y'all. Please subscribe. They're fighting Dagon, but none of them are able to even scratch him. He sets a domain expansion, and now the situation is even more dire because Dagon has control over the whole battle. Luckily for them, Fushiguro was nearby and made a plan to help them escape from the domain. But guess who's here, just ready to beat the shit out of someone for no reason? Like, I don't know anyone else in the series just ready to beat the bricks off of someone, because that's just in their nature. Well, Toji bails them out of the domain and takes his son for some long overdue bonding time. But it's not over for this team. They get promptly humbled by Jogo. And I saw somewhere that Jogo's really strong when he's not going up against the top 2 in his universe, because we literally see him go against Gojo, and then later, well, let's get to that later. Jogo senses Sukuna and decides to bring him back for a while. This is where shit really starts hitting the fan. Sukuna and Jogo make a deal where if he can hit him once, he'll follow his orders. So they tear the fucking city apart. This was a very cool fight. I didn't think it would go this hard when I first watched it, but I just sat there with my mouth open. Like, imagine how much effort this took and how much talent the team had to make this. Honestly, it was just a 10 out of 10. But the episode ends with Maharaga entering the picture. Like, stuff was already fucked up, but now it actually runs. Imagine being a normal person in Shibuya that night, and now you see these 2 things throwing office buildings at each other. Like, what do you do in that situation? So, Maharaga is out and loose to save Fushiguro, but Sukuna sees him, and since he thinks that Fushiguro is strong, he's gonna beat the curse himself. And let me tell you, this is why they took so long. This whole episode was just them fighting. Boom, this happens. Boom, that building is gone. Honestly, it just doesn't get better than this. After a certain point, we just start seeing actual civilians, and then the 2 just show no regard for them at all. It's like they're not even there. And this fits into the theme of Sukuna just not caring about anything but himself. He's fighting right now because he's directly benefiting from it. He doesn't care about the humans or the curses ruling over, because they all end up the same in his eyes. He just wants to be entertained. And I think that's why Sukuna is so cool. He's truly someone who doesn't care and is fueled by his own desire. So when that's threatened, he protects it. He leaves Yuji to see what he's done, which is pretty messed up. So now he has his eyes set on avenging all the people that he indirectly killed. Immediately following this, Nanami is killed by Mahito. And immediately after that, Nobara dies. I honestly don't have a whole lot to say about these 2 deaths because what already hasn't been said. I think that it really shows how scarce sorcerers are and how Jujutsu Society needs to enlist literal children to combat curses. Nanami saw this firsthand, but in the end, he continues to cycle by entrusting Yuji to end all of this. Not even the adults are able to brunt all of the pain because the situation they're in is so dire, they need everyone to help. But Yuji is done, to a point where he's not able to fight anymore. He tells Todo that he's too far gone, but Todo hits him with just some real talk. He says there isn't good or bad now for sorcerers, they just need to keep living and fighting for their ideals. And because of that, none of the allies died in vain. Todo and Yuji fight Mahito until he reaches the true shape of his soul. And this is where we see Yuji finally realize that him and Mahito are one and the same. He keeps killing curses because that's what his role is. There's no moral reason behind it, just like Mahito. Like, this is just gonna be in their nature until someone is able to stop them. This is truly the Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, the last episode of the season is a battle with basically everyone who's left in Shibuya against Kenjaku. He ends up taking Gojo and leaving the battlefield for good. But before we end on a cliffhanger, my glorious king Yudo Kotu is back. Shout out to the GOAT, shout out to the GOAT, shout out to the GOAT. But he's assigned to kill Yuji Itadori. Also, Geto or Kenjaku have a death sentence. Gojo is considered an accomplice. The principal has a death sentence too. And of course, they're out to kill Yuji. And that's the Shibuya incident. I'm really glad I was able to rewatch this and really get an understanding of what was going on. I would say the biggest difference between my 2 watches is that I watched this time in dub rather than sub, and it made stuff a lot more clearer. I gotta say that this was a really good arc, and how I felt about it at the beginning is completely changed now. Originally, I thought that things were just happening for the sake of happening, but that's far from the case. Everything for the most part felt methodical, and when shit went left, it was all accounted for by the curses. And when you got a glimmer of hope for our protagonist, it just felt like it was beaten down immediately. everything had a purpose, and I see why people enjoyed season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen. Even if you were just vaguely keeping up, the animation was some of the best of our generation. This was actually cinema. If you missed this, you definitely saw it somewhere, because how could you not? The personal arc that Yuji was able to go through was pretty cool too. He went from seeing the world as black and white to understanding that the world is a bit more nuanced than that. He's killing to protect himself and other people. There's no right or wrong, they just want to see the next day. The only gripe I have is for the last 2 episodes. I just kind of ran out of steam by then, so I don't know, they were just kind of boring, but charge it to the game. So back to the original question. Did Jujutsu Kaisen peak too early? I think this series has so much more to offer. I'm really looking forward to the next season. I think what we got was really good, and what we get soon will have some very big expectations. So no. But I do think that the hidden inventory arc was still kind of better.